people, Tracy Reed here today, coming at you with a brand new series that I like to call Think Outside the 12 by 12. In this series, we are going to be talking about using any printables, but my printables, to make 12 by 12 paper or 12 by 12 pages, even if you don't have a 12 by 12 printer. So today I'm going to be using remnants of patterned cards and actual patterned cards for this page. Now, my thought process was to recreate the pennants that are included in the summer camp collection with these triangles. So you don't have to have a 12 by 12 piece of paper to make a 12 by 12 layout. You of course do have to have something to put your layout on. In this case, I used blue cardstock, but as far as pattern papers, you can use smaller bits and pieces to make a gorgeous layout, and that is what this whole series is going to be about. So the first thing that I did was cut all of these triangles into, or all of these 4x6 cards into pennant shaped triangles, and I'm going to evenly distribute them all the way up my page. Now you can of course use triangles in any way that you want, but I decided that I wanted it to look like pennants. You could do equilateral triangles, you could do all kinds of different shapes. These are just the pennants that I went with. Now this is going to give me a great line of patterned paper to sort of build a foundation for the cluster that I'm going to create with my photos and my journaling card on this page. So I want to map my photos. I did print them slightly smaller than 3x4 at 2.75 by 3.75 so that I could mat them on 3x4 pieces of paper and have just a little bit of pattern peeking out around the edge. I always feel like matting my photos on just a slight bit of paper brings the whole thing together and sort of makes my photos more grounded into the layout. So I've got them trimmed down now on 3x4 size cards, and now I have to decide on the arrangement of the layout. Since I obviously cannot easily write on this dark paper, I want to incorporate this 3x4 card into my composition, but I'm not quite sure where. I have some Citrus Twist Kit puffy stickers and stamps pulled out to add to this layout, and I knew that this one had the word hike on it, so I wanted to build my title first, and it's going to say worst hike ever. These are some older wood grain alphabets that I have in my stash, and so I'm going to just overlap hike so that I get a little bit more of a dynamic title, and then I'm going to use some white, I think these are Cocoa Daisy, yeah, these are Cocoa Daisy stickers to add ever, and I like the variation in color that both matches the summer camp collection and makes my title a little bit more interesting to look at. So I've got my title set, and now I'm going to figure out where I want to put my photos around the title. So I know that I want to frame the title on all sides, well, on most sides, on 3 sides, with the photos and the journaling card, but I'm not quite sure where I want to put them yet until I realize that I want to add the journaling card just a little bit higher. So I'm going through and I'm thinking about it, and while I think about it, I want to add some of these pennants in because they were the whole basis for this layout, except I'm not quite sure. Like, I add too many pennants the first time around and I end up taking some of them off. So I had thought about where I want to place these photos while I was sorting out pennants, so now I know where I want to put them, so I'm going to put them down and then I will put the pennants down around them. So I like the way that this is looking, and I think that the shoes, the hiking boots, make a cute little anchor for the title and fills in that white space gap between the photo and the title that I was sort of struggling with when I was trying to figure out where I wanted to put my photos. But now it looks perfect. This is a great composition. It brings your eye right to that title, which is, I think, the most important part of this layout, because I love that it says worst hike ever while we are like smiling. This was before we realized it was going to be the worst hike ever, so I just like the contrast between the shiny happy photos with the title. I think it's a perfect contrast here. So I put down too many of these pennants and I'm not quite sure what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start auditioning a bunch of different embellishments. And the first one I start putting down are these sort of Aztec star looking things that are included in the sticker sheet. And I really like the way that these look, but it's definitely too much with those pennants. And I'm going to realize that pretty quickly, and I'm going to pull them up. I am going to add some back at the end because of course I do want them on here since they are the basis for this layout, but I want to add them in after I get the base composition down. So I really love the way that these Aztec sort of symbols sort of frame in all sides of the central composition and add a bunch of color to the page as well. You can see that so far on this 12 by 12 page, I have not used a single sheet of paper, just pattern cards and stickers and journaling cards and photos. Of course, I need my cardstock in the background, but you know, that is unavoidable. Okay, so I've got all of these down. I thought maybe I wanted to put that there, but I don't. They frame the layout real nicely, so I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to start putting other things down. So what I do again is I start auditioning things to be on the layout. I know that I want to have some of these stamps in this compass with the heart in the middle fits perfectly into the center of that label from the sticker sheet. So I'm going to use some Catherine Pooler ink. And I decided to go with orange because there's just that like a couple pops of orange on this page, and so I wanted to bring in just a little bit more orange to the page. So I'm going to use orange ink throughout. Now this stamp set is hilarious. It's called Snarkily Yours or something like that. It's all phrases like WTF, and so I choose the phrase let's not and say we did, which is exactly what we should have done when we started this hike. When we started, we realized after the first mile or two that it was all downhill in the beginning. And if it's all downhill in the beginning, that means at the end it's going to be all uphill. And it was awful. It was a 9.5-mile round trip hike, and the last 4 of which were almost completely uphill. My husband was miserable because he was miserable, I was miserable, but of course I was miserable on my own too because that is a lot of hiking. So I like the let's not and say we did. So I want to add in these mountains, of course, because we were on the side of a mountain. I don't want to add in too much more embellishment because I really feel like the pattern paper and those stars sort of speak for themselves and do a lot of embellishing without having to have too many icons on this page. So I don't want to add in too much. So I'm going to put some of these pennants back, just 2 of them. And then I'm going to reach into my stash again and grab some of my Cocoa Daisy enamel dots once I decide where those are going to go. Jeez. So I've cleaned up some of my space. I like to start cleaning up my space as I move along because it helps me to have less decisions to make if there's less on my table. So I start going through and saying, no, I'm not going to use this. No, I'm not going to use that as I start cleaning up. So I stamped one more thing from that snarky stamp set. It says, what was I thinking? And now I'm grabbing some enamel dots from my endless Cocoa Daisy supply that will match. So I'm looking for some orange and some green and some yellow that are pretty similar to the tones in the summer camp collection, and I'm just adding large enamel dots to the center of each of those sort of stars, and then I'm going to add smaller enamel dots to the center of the triangle ones. And I like the way that those anchor those and add a little bit more of a circular touch to the layout that has a lot of angles. So it kind of brings in those stamped labels a little bit more and makes everything make sense together. Deciding if I want to add in any more puffy stickers, I am not going to. So you can see me cleaning up as I go along. And then the last thing I decided to do, since I covered up the bottom of that journaling card, is add this geolocation stamp label, and I'm going to cut it out and round the corners and add it to the bottom of my layout. So this is the first in a series of a few videos and blog posts that I'm going to be doing on this subject, how to use printables on your 12 by 12 layout, since it is a common question that I get. The blog post is linked in the description box below if you want to bookmark it, if you want to read about the process, read about ideas. There's tips and tricks on the blog post, as well as a link to the summer camp collection. But that is this page all done. Let me know if you enjoy the series, if you want to see more in the description box below. That way I know what you want to see. All right, thank you.